how do you still love yourself throughout those failures or when you miss the mark?
You think of the sun. The sun shines its light unconditionally. It doesn't ask for anything back. I think there's three things that come to my mind right now that we are in control of at all times. I wanted to share these two questions with your audience that have really helped me over the specifically last couple years of my life, but over my whole life. The two questions that I ask myself on a daily basis, now more than ever, is who am I and what am I here for?
Welcome to EMG Transformations with Dan Stoll. Each episode will empower you to ignite your inner fire and provide methods to maximize your mental and physical performance. Buckle up and get ready to spark your transformation with Nova Fusion.
3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Welcome to EMG Transformations. I'm excited to feature my friend, Aaron Wexler. Aaron is an athlete, coach, and entrepreneur. He's the co-owner of WestCoast Beach, which is a year-round youth beach volleyball club in Santa Monica, California. His podcast, Within the Game, features elite athletes to share their journeys and how the lessons learned in sports transfer into living an amazing, inspired life. Aaron's energy is atomic as he radiates light and positivity on those around him. And I'm so grateful to have him as a friend and to share this conversation with you guys. Thanks for joining us today, Aaron.
Hey, man, thanks so much for having me, Dan. That's an amazing intro. I really appreciate those words and happy to be here.
Yeah, man. Let's just get into it with this inspired living, inspired athlete, man. Like we've been good friends for a few months, more than that now, being in the same membership and same community, and we always just hit it off. So let's start with your backstory, man. I'm interested to hear more about those experiences and struggles even that shaped you into who you are today.
Yeah, happy to. And shout out Craig Siegel for connecting us. Yeah, man, where do I begin? I always identified myself as an athlete. I love sports. I love movement. Grew up playing baseball. Wanted to be a Dodger, and I discovered volleyball and kind of fell in love with it and became a volleyball player. Played at UCLA, and then a little bit on the Pro Beach Volleyball Tour, and now giving back to the next generation of athletes. But yeah, I've been through a ton of struggles, right? I think, I wrote about it in my book, The Inspired Athlete. So like that energy is the person that I always wanted to be, the inspired athlete. And, I it was hard for me to get there, to be honest, right? It was hard for me to be inspired, all the time. And looking back on my career and, all the experiences that I've had in sport, there were moments of burnout. There were a lot of moments of burnout. There were moments of frustration. I've been through 2 knee surgeries, both on both knees, really, when I was at UCLA. And the second one really broke me, mentally. It just was like, man, it was so frustrating. And so if anyone's listening out there that has an injury or has been through injury, that could probably be relatable, because it can really throw you off track. And that's what happened. And that's what happened to me. And my second injury, I ended up having my senior year at UCLA, and I left the team. And that was the year that they won the championship. And it really was crushing for me. So I went on a few years actually after that of just this bad energy, right? I was just in a dark place. I was feeling sorry for myself. I knew I made a huge mistake. And and I had to try to get through that. So I did. I ended up pushing through that, and I ended up going back to UCLA as a volunteer assistant for the women's team, and ended up experiencing a championship. And, getting through that dark period of my life was kind of transformative for me, because that's the time where I really kind of delved into spirituality, visualization, this whole mental aspect of sport and the game. And yeah, so it's kind of a long-winded answer, but those are some background stories of my bigger story.
Yeah, I mean, a few things stuck out, the burnout and the victim mentality. And I don't think you said that necessarily, but it kind of sounded like that's what you were in after that second surgery and that injury with your knee. And it's like, well, everything's happening to me at that point. Like, this is out of my control. And, I was in the same place when I got diagnosed with Crohn's disease, had my entire colon removed. It's like everything's against me. And it's like, how do I get through this? So I'm curious for you, what pulled you out of that mentality and to want to go and contribute more and, get back on things?
Yeah, it's a great question. I looking back on that time in my life, I wanted to win so bad. I just remembered, and I still want to win. I love winning. Winning is a great feeling. But I remember, looking back on that time, and I wanted it so bad. And I remember like having my ego, now that I'm aware of my ego and my true self, which we can talk about more. I remember my ego was like pushing me so hard to like win and like prove. There was this big thing about proving to other people, either that they were wrong or that I was right or that I'm a winner and a champion, and knowing what I know now, it's just kind of silly that I had that, experience. I think a lot of athletes kind of go through that where you're trying to prove something to someone or even to yourself, rather than just kind of, love and cherish and be grateful for and appreciate the moment and your body and what you're doing and your opportunities that you have, which I think is the true champion approach. So yeah, I mean, man, it's such a blessing to look back at that time in my life and to actually appreciate that time in my life now. Speaking of appreciation, because I did learn so much, even though some of those experiences weren't, desirable, I think everything happens for a reason. And I'm actually really grateful for all those things.
Yeah. So looking back now to connect the dots, this is just like on the spot. What was one of those big lessons that you learned from that experience and that transformation?
Like you mentioned, the whole victim mentality, I remember being on the team and feeling so frustrated that there was always another player that was better that came in, right? It was just so frustrating. And that's all pretty much all team sports. There's always a new guy, there's always someone better that's coming in for the most part. And I just remember like getting frustrated at that rather than embracing that. And I kind of wish I could go back and just be like, dude, embrace this. This is awesome. This, you'll be able to push yourself to new limits rather than, being like, why me, the coach, the coach, right? It's like this outward energy, like pointing fingers, it's someone else's fault. So I think the biggest lesson I've learned is like that appreciation. It's like, and I talk about this in the book too, like gratitude is the first level, but appreciation is the vibe, right? The vibe of just having that energy all around you, inside you, outside you, like that. It's almost like a glow, you know. And so yeah, I think that's kind of one of the biggest things that sticks out is just being like so appreciative of everything, even the bad stuff, even the dark stuff. Like appreciate that because that can actually act as fuel.
Mm. Yeah, I always talk about transforming that pain into purpose. And, that pain truly is the fuel. And, just like switching your perspective on things, like that sense of duality, that really changed my life. Like when I'm in the fire and then everything just flat out sucks. And it's like the
Yeah.
world, I keep saying it, the world's against you because when you're in those moments, that's what it really feels like. It's like, unless you have that strong support system, like it's hard and like our negative thoughts start to get the best of us and we need to do something to shift out of that. And the gratitude and appreciation, I can't think of anything better to do that because we can't think of like a positive and a negative at the same time. So I'm
Yeah.
curious, like, is appreciation, this was like a question from the book when I was reading, is appreciation the first step in manifestation?
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely it is. I want to actually share a quick story about that because, back during that time when I was at UCLA, I partied. I was on the team and, Was very grateful and appreciative for that. But I was a party guy, and I got in trouble. I got in trouble with alcohol, and that experience actually helped me to break through from the party phase of my life. I ended up getting a job at a local yoga studio. And I want to share that because what I did in that moment is I was like, you know what? I'm tired of this party scene. Obviously, I got in trouble. Something or the universe maybe is telling me to shift, to make a change. And I was kind of like dabbling into yoga because it really helped me physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually ground. It helped me ground. It helped me like stop pointing fingers, stop looking around so much. Let me look back into myself and let me like commit to my own personal growth. And that practice was transformative, and so I went to a yoga studio and I got that job. I was just at the desk, and I really wanted to be surrounded by a different energy. And that was very, very helpful in that moment. So going back to your question about appreciation, yeah, like that practice of surrounding myself with the kind of energy that I was really attracted to, which is this calmness, this peace, and this inner wisdom, right? Yeah, it absolutely translates into manifestation because what that does is it starts to attract people, things, opportunities that are in line with what you want, which is that manifestation.
Yeah, living in alignment. It's almost like the reticular activating system. When you really plug yourself and you get clear on what you want, having clarity, that's also very important. We start to just start seeing things as opportunities come our way, but we're really just more alert and more aware and in tune of what we really want intuitively. So I think like the more we can get clear on that, the more we're going to see all these options and opportunities out in the world. And then we can take that bold action to really step into that. So I love that you're sharing that. And, something that I'm also curious about is like, just before we get too into this conversation, like what does inspired living mean to you? Like straight up.
Love that. Thank you for asking that. And thank you for being interested, right? Because, and it goes back to alignment. I love that word alignment. And to me, what that is vertical alignment. And I'll just share what that means to me. Vertical alignment is like your connection with your heart, your feet, the ground, your head, the cosmos, all just aligned, right? And so inspired living to me is living in that alignment and remembering who we really are. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And when we are inspired or in spirit, we can really tap into that energy and allow that energy to manifest in the here and now, in the human experience, right? Because that's what we're here to do. And inspired living to me is the goal, right? Because I don't know if we can get there all the time, but I think it's something we could shoot for all the time. If we can remember that that's like, hey, I want to get to that. I want to be in that vibe. I want to, in all that we do, even walking down the street. Can I be in an inspired living right now as I walk down the street or I go into the grocery store? And it's kind of also, radiating love and light like a lighthouse. I really like that image because a lighthouse just radiates, right? It just radiates light and it rotates. And if we can do that as human beings with our energy, I think that's part of inspired living. And I think it's the goal, if we can stay on the trajectory, if we can stay on the pathway to that energy, I think, everything around us can shine, right? The way that we shine. And it's kind of a reflection and it's a back and forth.
Yeah, I love that. And something that's actually really interesting that I found in your book is we were talking in Los Angeles before I even read the book. And I think you asked me like inspired living or inspired athlete, like what that means to me. And the first thing that came into my mind was love. Like, what does being inspired mean to me? And just loving what you do, being in that state. And as I'm reading your book, again, I haven't read your book before we had that conversation. And I see that the first block in the pyramid is love. So can you just like expand on that a little bit more and like why that is the foundation?
Great question. I mean, I want to give a little context for the pyramid. So
Yeah.
at UCLA, outside on the gym and basically everywhere you look, there's the pyramid of success. And the pyramid of success was created by legendary coach John Wooden, and it's it's basically it's a staple of the UCLA culture and brand, right? And the very top of the pyramid of success is competitive greatness. And it's worked for him, it's worked for teams and the whole brand of UCLA, because UCLA is one of the top championship brands of all sports, right? They're kind of always in the finals in many sports. So that pyramid is painted on the outside of the gym. So when you walk into the gym, and even when you walk out, you look at it all the time, right? And it's just kind of almost becomes a part of you.
Yeah.
And so the idea of competitive greatness at the top of the pyramid, again, is a great champion mindset, and I resonate with it for sure. I agree with it. But I think what happened to me is I was like, is that the top? We just want to compete and win. Okay. All right. That's cool, but I don't know if that's the top for me. I think it's close to the top. I think that idea of inspired living for me is the top, right? Because that's the that's the vibe that I want to have all the time, or I want to shoot for that. So going back to love, John Wooden, in one of his last interviews before he passed, someone asked him about regret, and he said, "Yeah, I do have a regret. I regret leaving out love from the pyramid."
Mm-hmm.
And I remembered, hearing that, and I said, "Okay, all right, well, I'll just put that as the cornerstone in my pyramid, not to compete with him at all, but just to kind of pick off where he left, and just to help pay that message forward, because he was all about love. He really was. And so that's where that came from. And, and my take on love is that love is the ultimate vibe, right? That's the vibe. That's what life's all about. The force of creating life is all about love. And right now in the world, more than ever, we need to radiate and share and talk about love in not just the cute way. I think the idea of love and even self-love, it's been cute. It's like a nice thing to talk about and to like think about. But I think we, more than ever, we really need to like really get into it. And the last thing I'll say about that is like the vibe of love is like intense when you really sit with it and you really think about it. It's almost overwhelming in a beautiful way, right? So if we can start to tap into that overwhelming, beautiful, like soup of cosmic love, and we can tap into that and start to share that in our creative ways, and even in business or interactions or podcasts, then I think we can create a ripple effect of more love.
I love that. And it really like goes with my message, inspire kindness. Like every act that you can do something that, betters the world, betters others around you, leaves more love in the world, and just overall leaves it a better place than you found it. I think at the end of the day, like that's a good thing to remember just as you're going through your daily life, and just, yeah, share that kindness, share that positivity, spread that light, because the world needs it right now. And who are we to like deny someone of that and not express and give that to them at the same time? It's like it's always flowing around. So
Yeah.
we all need that. And it's something that, as athletes, I think we need to love ourselves a little bit more too, because we get so tough on ourselves when we don't hit that result or that goal or that expectation. Our self-worth can really tank, and then it becomes this downward spiral. So how do you still love yourself throughout those failures or when you miss the mark?
You think of the sun. The sun shines its light unconditionally. It doesn't ask for anything back. It just shines its light. It just provides light. And that's what I like to do when I think about how to shine my light and how to give myself love and how to send love. That's actually a skill that I wish I learned back when I was growing up. And I'm paying that message forward now, which is like, just send love. right? Don't just send love and ask for love back. Just send love,
Just give it
right?
away.
Just give it away, right? And that is a beautiful message because, again, going back to the sun, this is just a metaphor, but that's what it does. So we can learn from nature. I was an environmental studies major at UCLA. I love to study what's happening around us, right? So that we can kind of learn from nature and then apply it in our own way.
Yeah, and I can definitely see that with you with the Zen and the yoga and just, that calm energy. And even in person, like you really taught me about that grounding and just getting out there, doing that appreciation, getting in tune with the earth and the sand, the dirt, like just really appreciating that and feeling it too. That's the thing. Like we can think all we want, but when we tune into our senses and really just be and exist, like that's where these divine downloads come. That's where the healing comes from. That's where these inspired thoughts just hit us like lightning, and we got to go take action on that. So it's so good, and I'm glad that you're sharing this with us today because I don't know how many conversations I had about love on here. So it's great that we're sharing that message, and it's for wellness and performance. It's a key component for all of it. So this is amazing, man.
Yeah, and you mentioned grounding. I mean, I want to speak on that for a second because if I was listening to that and I was like, well, what does that mean? If I wasn't like into spirituality and all these things, grounding to me, it goes back to that vertical alignment, right? It creates vertical alignment when you ground with nature. I'm so lucky and so appreciative and so blessed to be able to be in the sand almost every day here in California. But wherever you are, if you're listening to this and you're like, okay, let me see if I can try this grounding thing. All that means is, take your shoes and socks off and get barefoot in nature. It can be grass. It can even be dirt. It can be anything in nature, and just stand and feel that connection, right? That's grounding on a physical level. And then on a spiritual level, it's feeling connected, like literally connected to the ground, and understanding that, you can put your roots down and like just imagine this, right? This is just imagination, but imagine that your roots go down into the ground and you feel that connection and you feel strong. It's almost like a strong tree that has all these roots that are going down in the ground, and that tree just stands, right? And that's kind of what I mean by grounding, is like, take a moment, take a moment to just feel that connection. And what happens for me when I do that is this overwhelming sense of love, right? And it comes from that grounding. And then from that place, then you can go out and take inspired action and like do the things.
That's so good. And it really does come back to the place of like setting ourselves up for success and doing the inner work, whether that's grounding or healing the inner child, addressing those traumas that have been lingering and holding us back. Like all of these things, it really comes from a place of healing and overcoming that so we can shine and be our best self for the world and make that contribution and give back like yourself. So it's so good. And, something that I want to actually dive into, since we're getting a little bit more spiritual here, is what is that spiritual ascension that you were telling me about at the beach?
Yeah. So the spiritual ascension pathway it's kind of just a fun idea, but I'll share it with you right now. So I'm going to speak about it in the masculine, but it can also be for the feminine. So the first level of spiritual ascension is when you're a boy, right? So from a boy, then you become a man, right? And then when you're a man, the next level from that is to become a king, right? When you're a king, that's kind of when you like set up your kingdom, or in business, or your family. Like you become a king, you set yourself up. Once you become a king, and this is all my belief, right? I'm not saying this is right or wrong. This is just something to think about. Then you can become a hero, right? So like what a hero would do is you became a man, became a king, And now everyone's kind of looking up to you because you're doing something, right? You created this kingdom and you're like going for life, right? One person that comes to mind right now is LeBron James, right? He became a king. He even calls himself the king, right? And now he's basically becoming a hero, or he already is a hero, right? Lots of people look up to him. From there, right? A lot of people stop in these levels, right? They're like, yeah, it's great. I'm done. I did it. I think there's more levels. So from hero, I believe you can become a wizard. So what that means to me is like you really understand your manifestation powers, right? Maybe through that ascension, maybe you were manifesting all the time, but when you become a wizard, you really are aware of those manifestation powers and you start to manifest things outside of your kingdom, right? And you really start to share that message with others and you show them and you have this wisdom about you, right? And it's kind of a quiet wisdom, right? And then after that, I believe you can become a sage. Now, a sage realizes that throughout this whole ascension process, the idea is to give it all away, right? You can't take all this stuff with you as we go to the next realm. You got to give it away so that other people can follow in your footsteps or at least be inspired by this ascension pathway. And the last part of this is a little funny, but I like to share it because I think it's a fun thing to talk about, which is the top of my ascension pathway, which is galactic traveler. So once you become a sage and you give everything away to the human experience and you move on, I think the goal is to really travel the cosmos, and we cannot become galactic travelers if we're not peaceful, if we don't have love. Again, this is all my opinion, but I think the galactic traveler is the goal, right? And you have all this love inside of you, and you've realized what inspired living is, and you've given it all away, and you can become a part of the galactic dance.
Man, that is a special concept. And, the reason why I really like it is it gives us these milestones and almost like targets and mountains to climb. And it's like, okay, I'm a man now, but I want to build my kingdom. And you were telling me too, like there's different ways to build a kingdom, just like there's different ways to get to success. You could either, cheat people, lie, do all these things that are shady and, not good character, or you can have the good character, build strong relationships, provide value to people, and build a kingdom off of integrity. And you're going to both still have these kingdoms that look pretty nice, but which kingdom do you want to have? Which type of people do you want in your kingdom? The good people or the shady ones? And so, like, all of these things, it's like really like a moral compass almost to me.
Yeah.
And, finding your way through that. And that's like, okay, well, where am I at today? Where do I want to be? Maybe we don't all want to be galactic travelers. Maybe we just want to be like a wizard or a sage and just give it all away and just make this massive contribution. Like, we're all going to have like different points that we want to be on this ascension, but just the fact that there is different ascensions and there's different points that we can get to, I think that's the exciting part of it.
Totally. And I'll just share one more thing, which is the biggest, most influential, best piece of advice I've ever gotten. And I'm going to share it with you and your listeners right now. One of my very good friends told me very early on in my life, and I didn't get it at first, but now I get it. And it goes to what we just talked about. He said, Aaron, and his name is also Aaron. Shout out Aaron Felton if you listen to this. He said, Aaron, it's all up to you. Period. And I was like, what? What's all up to me? He's like, everything. It's up to you. It's up to you. Right. So like this whole idea of spiritual ascension and like creating a kingdom and like having an inspired living and or being a lighthouse of love and light or all this stuff. It's up to us. It's up to us. We get to choose. We live in a free will universe. And going back to my experiences at UCLA and like the injuries and getting in trouble and like it's all up to us how we deal with those things, right? And so like conversations like this, I think really push us to challenge us to say, okay, well, if it's all up to us, well, I can choose a different way. I can choose. It's so empowering to remember that. It's such a simple concept, But like I said before, it's the deepest, most influential piece of advice I could share with anyone, because that was shared with me. I'm paying that forward. It's up to you. Whatever just happened at your job, up to you how you're going to respond to it. Whatever's going on in the world right now, and sending love and blessings to the Middle East because they need it right now, it's up to us how we respond to it. We can live in fear and disappointment about it, or we can just send love, like we talked about earlier, with like the sun, right? We can do that. It's up to us. We get that choice. So I just wanted to make sure that I share that, because that is actually kind of the main message of the inspired athlete, right? It's up to us to choose that energy, which I believe is within us all, whether you think you're a competitor or not, or an athlete or not. The inspired athlete is within us. It's up to us to let that energy be evoked.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, because that is such a valuable point for all of us to remember, not even just today, but like, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, when life strikes. Like, that's such an important concept to remember and go back to as life continues to unravel. And it really is like you versus you at the end of the day. It's these choices. Who do you want to become? And, even like just like controlling what you can control. That's been the biggest thing. Like, we're talking about the biggest life lessons that impacted us. That's what impacted me the most. Like, there was so much beyond my control, even with an alcoholic father. I couldn't do anything about that, but you can just look at the positive, or what can I do in this situation to make things better for me, or even better for him? Like, what can I do to just make things better? And when you just think in those types of terms and you have that choice, knowing you have that choice, it can make the rest of your day that much better. Or vice versa, you can go down this other path and it turns into a bad day, a bad week, a bad month, bad life maybe. So, it really does come down to that choice, and making sure that you do choose positive, choose the right people to be around you. If you're surrounded by the wrong people, it's going to be hard to make the right choices. So, man, it's such an important concept that I'm glad that we're diving into. You want to say something?
Yeah. And well, yeah, to respond to that, I think there's the three things that come to my mind right now that we are in control of at all times. One is the breath. No one else controls your breath except for you, right? Number two is your attitude, right? You can choose where you're going to be attitude wise, right? Whatever's going on around you. I like to call it unconditional, being unconditional, where the conditions around you don't matter. I'm going to choose that unconditional love. I'm going to choose the inspired athlete. I'm going to choose the inspired living. I'm going to choose the lighthouse of love and light. And then the third thing is the trajectory. Where am I going?
Yeah.
What trajectory am I on? Right? Which definitely has something to do with the second thing I said, which is your mindset. But sometimes we forget where we're going, even if we're on a good mindset. So that's why I said three things. I think we can also remember and choose and be in control of, what direction am I headed in right now?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And, something I also wanted to ask you, since we're talking about you versus you and controlling what you can control, how much of life and performance even is mental?
Mm, mm. Well, so you versus you, I want to slightly adjust that, because that immediately puts yourself into a competition.
Mm,
And while I am a competitor, I don't want to go through life in a competition with myself. I'd rather be in unity with myself. So let's unpack that for a second. What do I mean by that? I believe that there are two voices in our head at all times. And I talk about this in the book. There's strong voice and weak voice. That's a kind of athletic term, because if you're ever in weak voice is like, I'm going to lose. I'm tired. This sucks. That's all like weak voice. Strong voice is like, I got this. Let's go. I'm going to win. Right. So like that duality. But to go even further than that, I would say that at all times we have our true self and our ego.
mm,
So the true self would be like, man, I'm a warrior of the light. I'm a spiritual gangster. I'm a being of love and light that's part of the cosmic love and the soup of limitlessness. I'm a part of that. And then the ego would be like, man, I just want to make a lot of money so I can just set myself up and just take care of myself, and that's it. Or, man, I just want to beat that person, or I just want to prove that I'm right and they're wrong. Like, that's all ego stuff. So I'm not demonizing the ego. A lot of, you might hear that a lot these days. I actually appreciate the ego, because the ego is there to protect you, right? Let's say you're in trouble, a bear's coming at you. The ego is going to help you fight and survive. So the ego is fantastic. But what I'm getting at here is to say, it's not you versus you. It's not the true self versus the ego. It's both. The true self is there at all times. Or, like, I'm a big Abraham Hicks fan, and Abraham talks about your inner being. To me, that's your true self. Your ego, like I said, is there to help you survive and protect yourself. So what I like to say, instead of you versus you, is to become aware, right? The awareness of, like, am I operating for my ego right now, or my true self? Okay, cool. I'm operating for my ego. Got the awareness. Got it. So now, ego, I don't need you right now. I appreciate you, but why don't you go chill out over there for a little bit? I'll come back to you. My true self is what I'd like to access right now. Even in this conversation right now, I feel like I'm accessing my true self, right? Because I'm aware of those two things. And so later, maybe in a tournament, when I'm playing a beach volleyball game, a little bit of my ego is good, right? Because I want to beat my opponent, right? So I wanted to clarify that. I know I rambled there a little bit, but I don't like to say you versus you. I like to say your true self and your ego working together in harmony, right? And then I think that's a better access point to the idea of inspired living.
Yeah, I like that a lot, because duality and yin yang, there's actually this big misconception that they're separate, yin and
Right.
yang, but
Right.
they're actually together as one. And they're always there together, and always both forces, when there's good, there's also bad, and vice versa. And just like when we're in times of our true self, our ego is still going to be there. It's not like we're shutting it off or eliminating it. It's still there, but we're just quieting that voice a little bit. And then when, a situation comes, life, you're in a competition or something, it comes up a little bit, but it's not
Yeah.
getting out of control. We're still keeping that balance and that harmony.
Yeah.
But that's what it is. It's like, it's the yin yang, and both of them combined. So
And I love that you use that in your Nova Fusion logo. And I love that. I'm so attracted to that idea of light and dark, and ego and true self, and that duality. It's a big part of this life experience. And just real quick, quick story. I went through a very, very challenging experience last year. It was very dark. It was actually a very dark point in my life. And with the help of, I call them my team, but I was able to access my angelic team through the help of somebody. And they said that experience, that dark experience, was actually there to help me grow. And so I would just offer that to anyone who's going through a tough time right now, who might be listening to this and was like, what the heck is this guy talking about? And all this stuff, it's like hokey, right? Because I might think of that too. If I was going through a really tough time and, like, facing some dark stuff, it's there for you. If you choose to look at it like that, it's part of your growth. What can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? Thank you for whatever's going on, right? Thank you. It's a good starting point to thank it. Now, how can I, like, be better as a person from this thing? It could be an injury. It could be depression. It could be anything. It could be loss, But I think everything that you and I are talking about today, Dan, is EQ, emotional intelligence, and how to use these feelings, because they're all feelings, to help guide us. The emotions are the guidance system.
Yeah, they really are. And it comes down to how we're feeling too. It's like we got to tune into those emotions and those feelings, but also not let them get the best of us, and learn to manage and have that intelligence, like you just said. And that comes through experience as well. Like, we have to kind of go through the fire sometimes to understand who we are and get those experiences. And it really does come down to the questions that we ask ourselves, like you were saying. So instead of like, why is this happening to me? Like, what did I do to deserve this? What is this teaching me? What is this setting me up for? How is this going to make me stronger and better? just shifting the questions that you ask to a more uplifting, positive, knowing that like, yeah, I'm getting more resilient, I'm stronger, I'm growing. Like having that mindset, that growth mindset, that can really carry you through the storm and getting through
Yeah.
that. So I love that we're touching on this. And
Yeah.
one of go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to share these two questions with your audience that have really helped me over the specifically last couple years in my life, but over my whole life. The two questions that I ask myself on a daily basis now more than ever is, who am I and what am I here for? And you can fill in the blanks, right? You can take yourself on a little adventure answering those questions, right? But those two questions have drastically helped me with my decision making and my trajectory on where I'm heading. So I just wanted to share that.
Yeah. And that's something I'm actually getting really clear on. It's like, what are my core values? I'm thinking like personally and for my brand as well. Like as I'm continuing to grow and I want to, bring on team members, like what is the culture that I'm creating here? Like what do I want to attract here and
Yeah.
create and like build the kingdom? Like you're saying, like what type of kingdom do I want? And I want that built off of excellence, integrity, duality, wellness, resilience, like all of
Yeah.
these things that grow and, make us become better and just high character. Like that's what I'm striving for. And that's been a question that I've been asking myself for probably a few years now. Not every day, but I keep on coming back to it and refining that and getting more clear. So, that's also like taking inspired action and like living that inspired life, like in alignment of who you are and who you want to be, and not having that like lack of clarity or that burnout because you're doing things that just aren't even who you should be or who you should be doing. So, I just wanted to share that because getting clear is some of the most important things that you can do in life, because it sets you up for everything else. Every decision you make, it's going to be based on those values or that goal that you want to get. So
Yeah.
it's super important.
Yeah, man.
Awesome. So, man, I'm reading your book and I get to the end and I see Kobe Bryant, and that really touched me as well. And interesting fact is I got your book on Kobe Bryant Day, and during that whole day I was out at the lighthouse at Lighthouse 24. So whatever reason, like the universe put me in that position, and I just wanted to talk about that and give him a shout out, the legend. What has Kobe Bryant done for you and that Mamba mentality? Like, how has that impacted you?
Oh man, I'm so glad you asked about Kobe. I mean, he was my favorite athlete growing up. I had a poster. It was Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. And I had a poster of him in my room, and just I watched every Laker game I possibly could with my dad, and was inspired by his journey. It was not just his journey, but like the way that he approached the game was so cool, right? Yes, he had the athletic ability to create the excitement and wow the crowds, and he had that look in his eye where he was ready to take over the game, and that again, the ego likes that, right? Or my ego likes that, because I'm like, oh yeah, I got that in me too. But then it was also on top of that, it was the way that he was able to shift his career after he finished playing basketball. And I also want to touch on the injury too. When he blew out his Achilles, and he was like, man, I'm not going to be defined by this, and he was able to rehab. All that stuff was so inspiring. And then he won an Oscar after, right? And he shifted into basically being a filmmaker, right? And being creative. And a big part of my idea of the inspired athlete and inspired living is creativity. And so he was able to embody that. He put out a book too, The Mamba Mentality. I mean, he was just I believe he went through that ascension, boy, man, king, wizard, right? I believe he was getting into being a sage, right? And he was starting to give it all away. And he was going on a bunch of podcasts and going on the late night shows, and was talking about his journey, and really inspiring people through his words and his experience. And not every champion does that. There's a lot of champions that just win and just get quiet and sit back and be like, yeah, look at me, I'm a champ. and that's cool. I mean, I'm not demonizing them or putting them down. You know, we all experience winning in our own way, but I just really loved how he was giving back. He was even coaching, right? He was coaching his kids, you know, and coaching other kids and like really giving it away, being a sage, you know. And RIP Kobe, I believe he's now a galactic traveler.
Yeah, yeah, he's watching over all of us right now, and you know, it's he's truly impacted my life for the best way possible. Just his approach, his demeanor, his character, on and off the court, man. Like you can he was like a student of detail, and
Yeah.
you know that's something
Yeah.
that I picked up from him as well. It's like yeah, I would study. I'm a basketball player. I would study him on the court, but I'm also looking at him off the court. What's he doing there? How's he preparing? What's his recovery like? What's his training like? Waking up at 3 a.m. in the morning, like
Yeah.
there's so much that goes into it. And, you know, even if like we're talking about the inspired athlete here, like these are things that you can take into your career, your relationships. You want to get that raise, wake up an hour early, hit the ground running, like do some things that are a little outside your comfort zone, stretch yourself a little bit. Kobe, he was doing that. He was stretching himself every single day. He was maxing out his potential every day. But he also had the flip side. He would rest and recover. He would spend
Yeah.
time with his family. He made that a priority. And so
Yeah.
all of those things, it's just like, wow, like that's the type of man I want to be, like straight up. And so yeah, rest in peace to the legend. You know, he's still here, galactic traveling around,
Yeah.
watching over LA, man. So it's
And he was and he was number one on my interview list of people who I wanted to interview, and he
yeah.
still is. I haven't taken his name off, you know. So maybe one day I'll be able to connect with his energy at some point. There was a quick story that I'll share. When I was at Santa Monica High School, um, he was on the rise, right? He's a couple years older than me, but he was on the rise, and everyone knew his name, and everyone was like, man, it's gonna be the next, you know, next big guy, right, for the Lakers. And so one day I was at on campus, and we noticed, I was with some friends, and we noticed like a camera crew and like, you know, this production going on. And we were like, oh, what's going on? So we walked a little closer, and there was a trampoline set up, and all of a sudden we saw Kobe, and Kobe was out there jumping on the trampoline with a ball, and this photographer was taking photos of him in midair. So he was jumping up and like posing like he's gonna slam it, and it was just so cool to watch him like in this like creative, you know, set basically. And it was like this enigma, this energy of like, oh, that's Kobe over there, you know. So that was pretty cool. That's like the closest I've ever gotten to him. But yeah, man, shout out to Kobe. Thank you for asking about him.
Yeah, of course, man. I couldn't do this podcast without doing it. So, man, this has been straight fire. I got one more question. We're saving the best for last over here.
Sure.
So, man, you kind of actually touched on this, but just like a different perspective, maybe a final takeaway here. What's been the greatest lesson or piece of advice received that has made the biggest impact on you?
Yeah. So that up to you, that up to you phrase is what I touched on earlier, and that's what's coming to mind right now. But really, like, you know, then another thing that's going on with me lately is I'm realizing that time goes by pretty fast. You know, I mean, I'm looking back on all those memories. I mean, it's just like it's like that, you know. And I think one of the big lessons that we're here to learn is to slow it all down,
Mm.
enjoy it all, even in the dark times, even in the frustrating times. This is our life. It's a beautiful experience. So whatever's going on with all of us, let's find ways to slow it down so that we can enjoy it, right? Let's not look too far back. Let's not look too far ahead. Let's try to stay in the moment more than we think is possible, because it's possible to just be here right now with meta awareness, right? And be a king, be a wizard, be a sage right here, right now. We don't have to wait till the big kingdom is built. We don't have to wait till we get all the knowledge and learn how to manifest like a wizard, or give it all away like a sage, or fly through the night sky like a galactic traveler. We can start to experience those things now, you know? And so that's what I would say is like, it's up to us to choose that. And then it's up to us to practice that.
Man, that's such a great perspective to end this. Like every day is truly a new life. So guys, make the most of it every single moment. That surfer's mentality, wave by wave, waiting for the right one to come and just taking that moment in. And we can do that on a daily practices with our daily lives here. Like we're washing the dishes, be present with those dishes. Like little things
Right.
like that. We can always take moments to be more mindful. So I love that you touched on that. So now, Aaron, this has been amazing. Let us know how we can support you now. I got the book here, The Inspired Athlete. We're going to drop that in the show notes below so everyone can get their copy. But yeah, let us know like what else you have going on or something that you're looking forward to so we can get involved.
I appreciate it, Dan. This is awesome. Yeah, the best place is to give me a follow on Instagram at awexla. And then my podcast. I'd love for you guys to check it out. My podcast is called Within the Game. The best place to find it is on YouTube. But you can find it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. But I'm really having fun with the podcast, like, like the journey that you're on too, just sharing ideas and, connecting with people like in this format. It's just so expansive and it's opened up my mind and my opportunities and my network so much. So speaking of appreciation, I'm very appreciative for the podcasting platform and the ability to connect with so many beautiful people. Right. So yeah, check me out there. And I'm excited about, I'm excited about this conversation right here. This was awesome and I appreciate it. And maybe looking forward to round 2 sometime.
Yeah, of course, man. And highly encourage you guys to check out Aaron's podcast. If you're looking to elevate your performance, play a bigger game, just, get that inspired athlete mindset. He's got some amazing guests on there. And, we talk about optimizing performance here. They do it as well over there and those elite athletes. So definitely check that out. You guys are going to love it. Aaron, thank you so much for impacting us today. You are empowering future generations with life lessons and skills that will continue to grow and better their lives and those around them in turn. You lead by example with your willingness to give back and to do the right thing, and humanity is a better and brighter place because of you. I'm so grateful to have you in my life and to continue evolving with you.
Oh, thanks so much, Dan. Love what you're doing too. Appreciate you.
Thank you, man. Transform your health and life with the Nova Fusion 21-day Wellness and Resilience Challenge. We're bringing the heat with daily inspiration, education, downloadable resources, and challenges to get and stay on fire. You're not going to want to miss this epic experience with us as we stack massive momentum, develop strong bonds, and create lasting lifestyle changes together. It's time for you to get in the room, ask advice from gladiator guest speakers, realize your untapped potential, and spark your transformation. The insights, the powerful tools, the lessons, the challenges in this program will truly transform your life. I believe in these practices so much that I guarantee results or your money back so you have nothing to lose and everything to gain. So what are you waiting for? I would love to invite you to our next challenge where we will discover the world's best wellness and resilience practices for staying mentally and physically fit for a lifetime. It's everything you need to get an unstoppable edge against the competition, and there are limited spots available. Let's spark your transformation together. I'm excited to see you and grow with you on the other side. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of EMG Transformations. You never know how one valuable insight can make such a big impact. Please leave a 5-star review if this episode had a positive impact on you. And don't be shy to screenshot and share episodes on social that you found helpful so we can spread the message and make the world a better place. You never know who may need to hear and the impact it has on them too. We're only scratching the surface. There's so much more to learn. Subscribe and stick around to manage stress, improve your health, and create lasting lifestyle changes. We'll see you next time on EMG Transformations.